So, Brian, your impressions of the camp so far?
Well, as per usual, my favorite place to be. You know how much we recruit in BC, and again, as per usual, this camp has not let me down or my expectations down. Dino Jeremiah does a great job at putting this thing together with Football BC. It really is. I honestly think it's the best camp of its kind in the country, at least any that I've experienced. Certainly there's a usual tremendous amount of talent in BC land for sure.
Well, you're obviously out there looking for talent, especially when you take a look at the turnover that you have. Everybody goes through turnover in the CIS, but man, Jordan Yance is gone, Nick Dembski is gone. Tremaine Apperly is gone. There's a long list of players that in key positions that you've lost. Where do you fill those key positions? Who is stepping up for you?
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. I mean, first of all, replacing Jordan Yance, who of course we recruited out of BC off the island. You just can't replace Jordan Yance. We won't replace him immediately, but of course we've added a couple of quarterbacks, knowing that we would have to replace him. Teo Dizar, local quarterback from Winnipeg, and of course Ashton McKinnon, who is the quarterback for Mount Douglas. With some BC championships. I think they won 3 in a row actually. So. And that's what you try to do. You can't lose Jordan Yance. You can't lose Nick Dembski, Tremaine Apperly, Keenan LaFrance. You can't lose those guys and usually just snap your fingers and replace them at face value in one season. What you try to do, of course, is that's why you're at these camps, to bring in younger guys. To develop and build them so that a couple of years down the line, when you're faced with big losses like that, you have people in place. And I think we're in pretty good shape at Manitoba. For sure, it'll be tough to replace last season's team with the guys we had and the guys we're losing, but I think that we've done a relatively good job in most areas, not all maybe, in getting those replacements in position.
There's going to be a lot of focus on a guy by the name of David Onyemata. Very impressive at the East-West Bowl. He's got a lot of CFL scouts looking at him. He does some tremendous things athletically. His arm length is off the charts as a defensive lineman. Tell me about how he can take it up to the next step, because I think I've seen him in games as he's gone through his learning curve. All of a sudden understand where he should be on defense, but there are still some areas where, in terms of actually finishing with technique, he still needs to work on, but he can still get to the spot. Absolutely,
and you're bang on. I think you just did your own interview. You're literally bang on.
I'm trying to make it easy for you.
Listen, I'm thinking of bringing you on to staff. You got that down pat about David. David Onyemata, what people don't understand that may be listening to this is that he came into our program from Lagos, Nigeria, had never literally even seen a football before. He knew nothing. He was just a big 6'4.5", 352-pound 18-year-old. And so we've had to take him to square one. First of all, we had to reduce that body down properly. He's now a svelte 6'4.5", 305, and he's like a cat. He can move. This kid can really move. To be honest with you, I'll make the prediction now. I think he'll be in the NFL. Dead serious. What's lacking is what you've described, and it's gotten better and better each year. Is the finishing part of it? Is the sort of elite part of being a defensive lineman? He is crazy through the roof strong. He is crazy through the roof quick. And what he's had to work on is technique. When he was that powerful, speed and strength, he would just overwhelm people. He would bull rush. He would use a very minimal amount of technique to accomplish what he felt he needed to, and it was getting him by that. Hey, if it's not broke, why do I need to fix it? And he didn't have that kind of attitude, but literally he would rely on what worked for him. And so it's been continuing working with him and trying to get him beyond that. And I think our coaches have done a pretty good job on it. The East-West Bowl, he was literally unstoppable. Literally unstoppable at the East-West. And you know, I would think that he'll be going into this year's CFL draft prospects list I think as the #1 guy coming in the nation. So he'll certainly be right up there. We'll see. This is a big season for him for sure.
Talk to me about the Canada West Conference this year coming up. We were talking a bit off camera on it, trying to rank the teams. I think Calgary is kind of ahead of everybody else by about a stride and a half. I don't think they lose too much with Wayne Harris stepping in at head coach. They've still got enough returnees on that offensive line in terms of their cycle that they should be solid. I guess one question might be at linebacker, but they've managed to get Dr. Kasama back at linebacker, which all of a sudden makes them pretty strong considering their secondary. And of course they got Andrew Buckley and Mercer Timmis there. You know, tell me about them leading the pack, but where does everybody else fall?
Well, I agree with you. I think Calgary's, you know, in great shape, and you're right. They're linebacking, but you know, I don't know. Well, with what they do, you know, with that 30 and everything that Coach Harris does with that, the linebacking's pretty important. But that's certainly overcomable. Their secondary certainly would challenge, would have an argument to say that it might be the best in the country. You know, they're a loaded team. Mercer Timmis, wow, he looked unbelievable at the East-West. Andrew Buckley is Andrew Buckley. He's the real deal at quarterback. So, but I think the conference is going to be a dogfight. I do. Certainly, I think Saskatchewan is going to be very, very tough. I think they've got almost their entire team back. And of course, they're always tough. It's interesting because, you know, everybody's expecting Alberta to take another step forward. You know, Coach Morris has done a great job recruiting, has really very evidently turned that program around. But we have some coaching changes, which are interesting. Of course, Coach Nill coming out to UBC, you know, probably the impact coaching move in the country this year, and the things that he's already done to up the ante at UBC. That's pretty scary when you're going to have to coach against that. Coach Gibson going into Regina, you just don't know what you're going to face there now. You know, with you know, Coach Gibson and the way he'll have. The way he'll view things and do things with his realm of CFL experience. So I think Canada West might be, you and I talked off camera, so I'll say it for you. This might be back to the old dogfight days of, as you said off camera, the 80s. Everybody, you don't know who's going to win on Friday night or Saturday afternoon. There's going to be upsets, but I don't know how much you can call them upsets, because I think there's such a lack of disparity. I think it's going to be a very even conference in terms of people's abilities to beat other people on any given day. Certainly there is a top team and maybe a bottom team, but the gap isn't that far off, and everybody has certain strengths that make them scary for their opponents. So, yeah, it's going to be adventure this year. I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. We had a great run, and we had a great year last year, and we certainly want to not step down. We want to move up, and we know how tough it's going to be. It's everybody's in that same boat.
You were the head coach at East-West. You've always been involved in Kafka. You've been a leader within the coaching fraternity. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges, and there were a lot of issues discussed in the CIS in this off-season. There's a task force that's trying to work on things at a national level. What sort of change would you like to see come about over the next few months, if that change could be implemented?
Well, you know, for sure, and you're leading me into this, and because we know each other so well, and you know how I feel.
Brian, I'm not saying the I word.
So I'll just say it. I'm speaking, I think, for everybody in the country. I'm sure you're hearing this from other interviews as well. We would all like to see we're very proud of the CIS. It's the real deal. People are missing the best ticket in town by not coming out and watching UBC play here in Vancouver, or watching, Manitoba play in Winnipeg or the Dinos play in Calgary. Best ticket in town. It's a great level of football. It's progressed so much. We're there, and I think to take it further, I think we need to expand our brand. I think we need to show who we are and increase our ability to compete. And that means national. That means national interlock. Would love to see it in however it begins, in any way, shape, or form that allows us to go national, and different competition, different venues, all of the above. It increases the student-athlete experience. It increases the branding of your product. The public awareness, and gives us a chance to back up what we're bragging about. And I think it's very, very close to happening. That's what I'd like to see. That'd be first on my agenda.
For those people that are holding out on that idea, what would it take, do you think, to change their minds?
Well, I think everybody, at the end of the day, your program comes first, more than the big picture, the national interest. Because none of us are being paid by the CIS. We're being paid by our universities. Our athletic directors are being paid by their universities. So everybody, that's, I think, what needs to be overcome is the what's in it for me. I think that's the absolute key to it, what's in it for me. Everybody wants something out of that pie. And, with the proposals that have been reviewed, this past winter, I think the meat and potatoes is there. Hopefully it just needs some tweaking and finding ways to make. I think one of the fears is an alienation or segregation of so-called top teams to so-called more struggling teams, and how to mend that. And I think within some of the proposals that have gone forward in the past year, I think there are things that allow some of the struggling teams, that's not a good word, but to use that, interlock scheduling and step up, step forward, put themselves into better positions against more equal opponents to create some wins for themselves and change their perspective and their image. So again, I think it's close. I think it could be a year away.
Brian, thanks very much for this.
You bet. Thanks. I appreciate it.